All right, joining me now here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is Kyle Karges. Kyle is the producer and director of the new documentary film 31 States, which you can find at 31states.com. You can also find him on Twitter at 31states. Kyle, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so Kyle, let's begin by discussing the title of your film. What exactly does 31 States refer to?
31 States refers to, when we started the film, how many states actually allowed rapists to sue for custody of children conceived in rape.
So it's actually it's 31 states. So if a child is conceived in rape, the rapist can actually sue the victim for custody of the child.
Yes. And it was 31 states when we started filming about a year ago. I believe it's about 25 right now. On the 31states.com website, we actually have a list of all the current states with laws in place.
So let me ask, how exactly did you come about wanting to make this film? What inspired you to make this story?
It started out making a PSA for a local rape crisis center and just kind of seeing the impact that little 1-minute segment had within the New Mexico community. And then I saw a CNN interview with Sheila Pruitt, who actually had this happen to her last year in college, went through the traumatic event of the trial and all the crud that actually went through there, and then was like, no more, and went to law school and became a lawyer because of it, and then wrote model legislation for states to use to try and pass laws to prevent this. And then she wrote an article stating that 31 states, which is actually the inspiration for the film, she wrote in the Georgetown Law Journal, I think it was her thesis or whatnot, but detailed how states weren't protecting women and how many states actually didn't have laws, and then how the states that actually had laws were extremely inadequate.
So let's discuss some of these laws, because some of them, you think this is something in a just world, this never happens, but apparently this is something that happens in like initially 31 states. It's down into the 20s now. What are some of the more egregious laws? And I mean, they're all pretty horrible, but describe some of the laws and how they actually are structured that allow rapists to sue the victim for custody of a child.
Well, so far at least half that used to be 31, but is now like 25. Have no law to protect it all. They don't distinguish between a husband coming home with wine and roses to, make a child, than someone being assaulted and someone essentially being a sperm donor. There's no distinction at all in half of America. And in the other ones, the ones that actually have laws in place, most of them only protect 3% of the actual victims that are raped.
How so? How does that actually work with the 3%? How is that structured?
How it's structured is they actually have a conviction clause in the rape custody legislation for each state, and only 3% of rapists actually ever see 1 day in jail.
Right. Unbelievable. I'm talking to Kyle Karges, director of the new documentary film 31 States, 31states.com. On the site, you actually have some footage from the documentary, and again, the documentary is, you're still filming it at the moment, and it's still you're in the process of getting the starting to edit it now. But you actually have some interview with a young woman named Piper, and it's unbelievably gut-wrenching, her story. Tell us about Piper and what actually happened to her when you actually got to talk to her.
Yeah, she was 14 in 2010. It was a couple days before Christmas, and she was raped in the basement of her own home with her family there, not in the room, but they were upstairs doing a Christmas dinner, by a soldier that was home on leave. He was 18 and she was 14. And Piper had bought into the SVU and CSI and Hollywood version of what rape is, that you have to have a knife, or you have to have a gun, or you have to be beaten. And she knew what was happening to her was wrong, but at first she didn't even know it was rape. And that's really what kind of caught my eye, was like, wow, a 14-year-old in America right now really doesn't even know what rape is. And so that's a big topic in our film, about educating the public on, it's not Ted Bundy down the street or somebody sneaking in your window. I believe it's between 54 and 60% of rapes happen by someone that you know or have just met.
Mm-hmm. And so she was 14. This soldier, this is someone who's enlisted, rapes her when she's 14. What happens after? I mean, because so initially she was thinking it had to be some type of at gunpoint type of thing. What eventually happens with her story? What she eventually does tell her parents, and they go to the police. What goes on when that actually comes down?
Yeah, she actually comes out. She found out before she told her parents that she was pregnant with a child, and she told her mother on Mother's Day. So, happy Mother's Day. Sorry, I was raped and I'm pregnant. So it's just horrible. Mm-hmm. But they go to the local police, and the local police don't do anything. The DA won't prosecute. Apparently,
hey, Kyle, I'm having a little trouble hearing you here. Just,
right.
Maybe. Oh, there you go. That's much better.
They
go ahead.
They went to the police and the DA and everybody, and they didn't do anything. And then so the military stepped in and tried to prosecute this guy, but he got off.
And that what was really interesting and horrific is actually how, because this happened in Missouri, correct? Her story?
Yep.
What was the Missouri law when it comes to rape? Even though he was 18, she was 14, that the consent laws in Missouri are crazy. How did that actually work? That somehow so he doesn't get convicted of this, but because he wasn't convicted, the consent laws to go into the law in Missouri, because the way it's structured is pretty infuriating.
It is, or it was. At the time this happened, I believe he could be 21 with a 14-year-old, and there were no statutory issues. We've never really looked at it as a statutory because it was coerced. She never said yes. They weren't dating. There was no relationship in place. So it wasn't just date rape. It was, she's on the ground and he did his business and never asked, never got, hey, this is okay. So I don't even look at it as just a statutory issue. But yeah, at the time, Missouri did have a weird law where it was 14 and 21. I believe last August, the governor signed something that, a 14-year-old is not able to consent. So that law now has some kind of justification and backing of, okay, 14-year-olds are not allowed to say it's okay to have sex.
Right. Well, so Piper is assaulted. She does tell her mother that she's pregnant. She decides that she wants to keep the child, and she gives birth. What happens then? Because this is, again, what the whole purpose of this film. So her rapist then wants joint custody of the child that he raped her with. Go tell us about that.
No, he wants sole custody, and he wants her to pay him child support. And he wants to change his name. He's never even met the child. The only thing that they decided that they could do was to have her parents try and adopt him before the custody case could go to trial. And so right now they're in the middle of an adoption case, and they're waiting to hear back from the judge. I actually was with them for 3 weeks from Thanksgiving all the way through the trial, almost into the new year, and just saw that these people are prisoners in their own home because the law is not protecting them. Every time the phone rings, every time somebody knocks on the door, they jump. They don't know if the police are coming to take the child or if something's going to happen, because we've actually seen that in Wisconsin. I have a video of the police coming in and physically taking a child away from her grandfather, that they had thrown the mother in jail because she would not turn it over to her rapist.